Hello there YouTube, it's Clormo with another Logic Pro X tutorial, and today I'm gonna keep going with the Alchemy Explained mini-series, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about the sources. So I'm gonna dive into that advanced view portion of Alchemy and just give you an overview on the sources and talk about source mask controls and stop the video right there so we can keep going little topics at a time for easier access and referencing later. Before I start the video, just as usual, reminding you that this video is part of the current round of the Amazon gift card giveaway. All you need to do is be a subscriber, comment on this video, and you too could earn a chance to win a $20 Amazon gift card. There's no gimmicks, no jokes, no, I'm not gonna do anything crazy with your information or anything. It's just a giveaway, so you can decide if you want to participate or not. And with that, let's dive right into the tutorial because I want to try to make it a little bit quicker. So right away, this is the advanced view, and just as a little recap, the browse view, we saw this before, so we saw the simple view on the previous tutorial. The advanced view opens the synthesis options and the sound designing options and parameters that you have available to you in Alchemy. What I did in the last video, I had some MIDI information. I still carry that, but I changed the preset, and that's just to give a little bit of the different flavor. I'm just gonna press play for now so you can reference that tune. Nothing groundbreaking. So what are we going to be talking about here? We're going to be concentrating on this area here, which is the sources, right? You have your sources, and right now I'm in this view, the global view. I'm not going to do the sub-page controls, but this is what they are called, and you're going to see why in a second. So as an overview of the sources, if you have been keeping track with all the other tutorials that I have been doing about synths, you know that the sources are what creates a sound, right? You need a source to create some sound. In Alchemy itself, the sources are only accessible in the advanced view, like I have said before. And those sound generating modules that are called sources in Alchemy are 4 independent sources available to you, and they are labeled A, B, C, and D. So this here are your 4 sources. They have exactly the same parameters, they have the same options, and when you're in the global view as we are now, you can see the 4 of them together. Going to the sub-page views, right, the sub-page controls, which will show you the different particular controls for each of the sources that you select from A, B, C, and D. We're going to see that later. Each source provides multiple sound generating elements which are based on different methods of synthesis, and you're going to see that when I go through the different lists. And you can turn them, all of those elements, you can turn them on and off by just clicking at the letters, right? So you have A, B, C, and D, and if I have A and B together like this preset does, you notice that there's a little line highlighting the sub-page controls. That means that those are on and that you can go in there and fine-tune them. And also means that I am combining them. So if I had 4, I had 2 more here, like additive and saw. If I turned them on, I would end up with a resulting output that will be a combination of those 4. Right now, it's just taking into account A and B as this preset goes. There are a handful of restrictions on the elements and the combinations that you can have within a single source, and you can go around those by using different synth methods. for each of the sources, obviously. So depending on which source you select, you can go around how the combinations of them works, like I have been saying. So with that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the source master controls. I already explained to you that you have these sub-page controls and you have your sources A, B, and C, and D, which are the corresponding tabs here, but I didn't mention the morph. The morph, when it's on, is just gonna show you the source morphing parameters, and this is pretty similar to what I show you in sculpture. So when we get there, you're gonna see it kind of works in a similar way. For now, I'm just gonna show you what that window looks like, but we're not going to talk about it. We're going to be concentrated on the global portion or the global parameters. So the different elements that we have for each of the sources, like I said in the beginning, are the same for all of them. So I'm just going to concentrate on editing just this guy here and or showing and telling what they are. So the first thing we have is this source select pop-up menu, and you can load different things, different synthesis options, and I'm gonna go little by little through them. But the first thing that I wanted to tell you before I do that is that this source select pop-up has two different functionalities built into one. So not only can you choose what you want to do here from this list, you can also select via the left and right arrows, right? Similar to the name bar, but this also serves as a level indicator. So if I press play again, check the two that are active, and you see that little bar, gray bar, going up and down. That's equivalent to what we have here on the track, right? When you're checking the level, which is good because you might not be seeing any clipping here at this stage in the track view, but if this is clipping, this is going to turn red, and that's going to give you a good indication that your volume knob might need some tweaking. So we're going to get there in a second, but from the list that we have here, the first it's import audio, and that's only just gonna, what it's gonna do is just import some audio data that you may have outside, and that's gonna enable the sampling portion of Alchemy. It's gonna be more tied to or make it more a sampler as opposed to using some synthesis. And we're gonna see that in more detail later. The load BA is pretty simple. It's just loading waveform data like all the other synths. You can choose from many different basic, complex, pulse, saw, sine, and square waves, and I'm gonna be talking about those in more detail later. Since we're just talking about the global controls, all you need to know for now is that you can load your different waveform data from here. So choosing one of those is gonna override whatever it's here for the preset. So keep that in mind. Load source, what it's gonna do is just gonna load something from a disk. So if you save any data into a disk, right, outside any, you come here and you change any of these parameters and you clear, let's say you clear that source, which is what this does. It's just going to clear that, and you tweak these parameters to something specific, and then you save that source. You can later load it into any of the sources from a disk that you have saved it to, and you can always have it available at your disposal. So that's pretty powerful, because that's something that some of the other synthesis did let you do in the form of presets, but in here you can fine-tune a source itself and combine it with anything else that Alchemy already has and go from there, right? So save source, I already explained it indirectly. So obviously what you can do is just write some source data to a disk, and that's all of that is saved in src format. So That's Alchemy's source format file extension. If you know, be kind of clever, right? The src for source, so nothing groundbreaking to learn there. All of that saved data includes all source control settings and reference to any loaded or imported audio data. So if you have imported audio and then make changes, that save source is going to do that. So let's say that I want to just go to save source. You're going to see this window, and then you can give it a name, call it .src, and it's going to already save it into, let's see if we can, so that's where it's at, right? So it's inside, this is the path inside Alchemy where it's going to save it. So I'm not going to save that for now. So we talked about save source, and now we go copy source. Simple. If you have from any of the presets, like right now I can just copy, I'm just going to show it. I can copy that, and let's say I want to paste it into source D exactly as it is in source A, but I don't want that to conflict with anything, so I'm just gonna clear up. If I were to change, I just want to show you something real quick. If I went to change the preset and then change it back, it's just gonna show me an additive wave that's already turned off. Initially we had a saw, so this is not being used, it doesn't really matter. And then randomize source, what that's gonna do, it's just gonna apply random variations to these knobs here, and you see you can keep randomizing, and every time you randomize it, this is gonna change those parameters for you, which is also good for when you're feeling creative or you just want to introduce something. Obviously, like the word describes random, you can just do that and get crazy with it. Now let's talk a little bit about these knobs here, so we can start getting to the end of this tutorial. The volume knob, very self-explanatory. It just sets the output level, and it's same, right? Negative to the right, positive to the left, and it's important to keep an eye to that level bar, like I explained at the beginning, to make sure that you're not clipping in your source. Tuning, as with any other synthesis, you're just tuning in semitones. You can further fine-tune your source when you go into the sub-page controls, but we're gonna see that later. Then the panning is just gonna determine where you are in the stereo field, like any panning knob would do. But now we get into this guy here, which is very interesting, and it's quite different from the other sets. And this would be the send knob. So the send knob is gonna determine the balance of the source output after you have applied filters to it, if you're using them. So this here works in conjunction with this guy here, the effects, and we're gonna talk about that later. We're gonna talk about this whole section later, but for now, just so you understand, it's gonna interact with this effects window down there, and it's also gonna interact with your filters. So that's pretty neat to know, and this is just gonna balance each one of them. So when you're here right at the middle, before I go into this drop, it's just gonna mean that it's perfectly balanced. If you go all the way here, you're gonna be affecting more a filter send or an effect send. And you're gonna see right now when I go here into the send destination pop-up what I mean by that. So you have it's just the same, right? It's just you either have F1, F2, or F1 FX A, B, C, and D for the four sources, or F2 FX A, B, C, and D again, equivalent for the four sources. So in F1, F2, your source output is routed to the main filters 1 and 2, which are located to the right, as I already noticed there, right? That just means that you're going to be sending your source and the different parameters that you apply to it between filters 1 and 2. So depending on the balance knob, depending where you're going right now, I would be going all the way to filter 1, which is why it's on, and filter 2 it's off, because I am going all the way to F1. So if I wanted to have them both, I wanted to turn this guy on, and now I can differentiate between them. And there is a slight change. I don't know if you're noticing it through your speakers, but it's very slight. And, you would need to tweak a little bit more this knob, so we're not gonna see that here. And then in F1 effects and F2 effects, A, B, C, and D, what happens there is that the source output, it's routed either to the main filter, being 1 or 2, and the FX rack, which is down here. And this is why you have the equivalent buttons A, B, C, and D, because this buttons here is referring to the different sources that you have on top. And you can also do the same for the main, but again, we're going to see that later. So that's all it does. You can determine the balance where your source is going between your filter 1 and your effects rack, or your filter 2 and your effects rack. Unfortunately, you can't do both right at the same time, but you can still get some crazy effects if you are when you go to the different subpage controls. And with that, pretty much that's all you need to know. You have the same type of interaction and parameters for the four of them. So when you take into account the morph and how you combine the four sources together, then that gives you a ton of possibilities that you didn't have with your other synths. You were quite close with the ES1 and ES2. You had similar kind of interactions with your sends, but you didn't have the amount of waveforms that you have here. This is, just look at this. This list is just massive, right? And then you have 4 independent sources that you can combine. So imagine how you can go, and then you can go into each one of the subpage controls and further tweak them, fine-tune them, introduce more sends, more effects, more filtering, and you name it. So with that, I'm gonna cut the tutorial right here, I think. So I think I pretty much cover everything on those source master controls. So yeah, with that, I'm just gonna cut the tutorial right here, and then in the next video I'm gonna talk about the different options, parameters that you have with the import browser. So you might be thinking, why is he gonna make a different video just for the import browser? Trust me, there's a lot of things that you want to see in there that are very important and very unique for Alchemy. So again, to make this, to make sure that you understand Alchemy completely, it will have to be that way. I'll have to break it down to that level of detail. So with that, I'm gonna leave you for now. As usual, thanks for the support, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share it if you think that, or you know somebody that might like it, even if you just stumbled upon it and you didn't quite like it but you think someone else will. Just do me that favor. I will really appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Peace out, YouTube.